The cry didn't come from the radio. It came from under the snow. Nora stopped mid-step on Mount Kestral's ridge, wind hammering her visor. The storm was loud enough to swallow engines, yet that sound cut through anyway. Thin. Furious. Alive. She heard it again, rising from beneath her boots. "Hold on," Nora whispered, and stepped off the marked route. She was supposed to be back at the outpost in 30 minutes. But the ridge markers were already vanishing under drift, and her wristcom was chewing static like it had teeth. The chirp came again, closer. Nora stabbed her ice pole into the crust. It held. She took one more step. The snow collapsed. She dropped hard to her knees and slid, catching herself with one gloved hand. A draft rose from the hole like a mouth exhaling. A crevasse. Narrow. Deep. Nora angled her headlamp down. The beam found a small shape wedged between jagged ice, shivering so hard the whole body trembled. A cub. It looked like a kitten until the light caught its coat, black fur dusted with blue specks that shimmered like trapped starlight. Amber eyes locked onto hers, hungry and furious. It chirped again, as if offended she hadn't fixed everything already. "What are you doing up here?" Nora said, voice gentler than the wind deserved. The cub tried to stand. One hind leg was pinned under a slab of ice. No blood, just trapped and freezing. Nora moved. She unhooked her climbing line, drove an anchor spike into the rim, and clipped in. "Easy," she murmured. "I'm coming." She lowered herself into the crevasse, boots scraping slick ice. The cub watched the whole way down, silent now, eyes tracking like a predator's, except predators weren't usually this small. At the bottom, the space barely fit her shoulders. Nora tested the slab. Too heavy to lift. She pulled her thermal cutter and thumbed it on. The blade hummed. The cub's ears flattened. "It's just heat," Nora said softly. "I won't touch you." She cut a thin channel around the slab. Steam hissed. Ice softened with reluctant cracks. The slab loosened. Nora eased it away. The cub yanked its leg free and snapped at the air, warning only, then shivered and pressed its face into Nora's palm like it had run out of bravery. "Yeah," Nora whispered. "You're cold." She tucked the cub under her jacket flap where her heater pack was strongest and started climbing. The moment she crested the rim, the storm punched harder. Snow came sideways. Visibility collapsed into white noise. The outpost lights vanished. Her wristcom crackled once, then died. "Of course," Nora muttered. Oxygen. 28 minutes. Nora scanned for shelter and found a half-buried maintenance hatch, old mining infrastructure, abandoned when this mountain stopped paying for itself. Frozen shut. She planted both boots and yanked until metal screamed and ice snapped. The hatch opened. Darkness breathed out. Still air. Nora dropped inside and pulled it closed. Silence replaced the wind, not peace, just the absence of assault. She set the cub on her pack. It wobbled, then sat, staring at her like she owed it dinner. "Hungry first," Nora said, tearing open an emergency nutrient gel. The cub devoured it like it had been starving for days. It ate fast, paused to glance up at Nora's face, then ate again. Nora exhaled. "There you go." The cub licked the last smear, then headbutted Nora's wrist, small, gentle, possessive. Then the blue specks in its fur brightened. Nora frowned, until her comm buzzed. 1 bar of signal. Then 2. Then 3. A transmission opened without her permission. A calm voice filled her helmet. "Dr. Nora Ellison. Maintain position. A recovery team is en route to extract the juvenile." Nora's stomach dropped. She hadn't activated any beacon. "Who is this?" "Meridian Research Trust," the voice replied. "The specimen is a Noctis-born felid. Contraband genetic line. Corporate property. Do not interfere." The cub's ears twitched at the tone. It didn't understand words. It understood threat. "It's a child," Nora said. It is an asset. A dull thump shook the hatch above her. Then another. Boots. Nora scooped the cub up and backed deeper into the tunnel. Her headlamp caught rusted ladders, dead panels, and a narrow side passage choked with cables. A flashlight beam knifed through the hatch seam. A voice echoed down. Listen. Open up. Don't make this difficult. You boarded a neutral zone, Nora shouted back. Neutrality doesn't apply to stolen property. Metal groaned as someone forced the mechanism. Nora lowered her voice to a whisper, close to Starfur. Gentle. Stay with me. The cub pressed its nose to her palm like a promise. The hatch slammed open. Cold air surged. 2 armored figures dropped into the shaft, corporate security. One raised a stun rifle. The other carried a locator, its screen pulsing. There, the locator operator said. Blue markers confirmed. Nora stepped between them and the cub. Back off. The rifle operator laughed. You're exhausted and alone. And you're in an old shaft with pressurized lines, Nora snapped. Fire that arc rifle and you could collapse this tunnel. The rifle operator hesitated. The locator operator lunged anyway. The cub moved. Not like a pet. Like a shadow. It slipped between Nora's boots, sprang onto the wall, and dropped behind the locator operator. A tiny paw tapped his wrist. Precise. The locator fell and clattered across the floor. The cub's blue specks flared bright. Every light in the tunnel flickered. Nora's visor dimmed and rebooted. The stun rifle sputtered and died. A sharp electromagnetic pulse rolled through the shaft. Both guards froze. Nora stared. You did that. The cub chirped once, proud, and shoved the locator toward her. Use it. Nora grabbed it. A map flashed, a maintenance exit 2 tunnels down, lee side of the mountain. Move, Nora breathed, and ran. Boots pounded behind her. The guards cursed, fumbling to reboot gear. One triggered a flare. The tunnel shuddered. A distant boom rolled through the structure. Avalanche. Dust and ice sifted from the ceiling. A support beam groaned. Nora sprinted harder, lungs burning, the cub tucked tight under her arm. They squeezed through the cable choke. The cub wriggled, not fighting, helping, twisting through gaps and chirping like guidance. The exit hatch appeared ahead, rusted and half-frozen. Nora slammed her shoulder into it. Nothing. Boots thundered closer. She gripped the wheel and turned. It resisted, then cracked, then moved. A gust of snow blasted in. Nora dove out onto the slope. Whiteout. Wind screaming. The world erased. Behind her, the guards emerged as silhouettes in the storm. Then the ground shifted. The avalanche line broke above them. Snow started sliding like a living thing. The guards froze. Too late. Nora threw herself behind a rock fin, curled around the cub, and braced. The world roared. Snow slammed over the slope, swallowing sound and movement. Then it passed. Nora lifted her head. White everywhere. No voices. No boots, only the storm, and the cub's small breathing against her chest. You're okay, Nora whispered. Her comm buzzed, this time clean. Nora. Rescue drone has thermal. Hold position. Nora looked down at the cub. The cub looked back. Then its blue specks brightened again, steady, deliberate. A beacon choosing to be seen. A searchlight cut through the white and found them. The drone descended, stabilizers fighting the wind. We have you, the speaker crackled. At the outpost, heat hit Nora like mercy. Medics checked her oxygen and reached for the cub for quarantine. NYX's ears flattened. The blue specks brightened in a warning shimmer. Nora kept one arm around the cub. Slow. Let it see your hands. NYX watched the medic's fingers, then relaxed by a fraction. Trust, earned in millimeters. Then the terminal pinged, meridian again, now with paperwork and arrogance. A corporate liaison appeared on screen, perfectly calm. Dr. Ellison, you are in possession of Meridian property. Surrender the juvenile and this ends cleanly. Nora leaned closer. You crossed into neutral territory. You attempted extraction during a storm. You threatened a child. It is not a child. It is an. Say asset, Nora cut in, voice quiet, and I'll send your own recording to every council delegate. The liaison paused. The outpost commander stepped into frame. Meridian has no jurisdiction here. Oversight is inbound. The screen went dark. Minutes later, Oversight delivered an emergency order with fresh seals. Protection active, investigation opened, and one line that finally loosened Nora's grip on fear. Custody granted pending tribunal. NYX chirped softly and pressed its forehead to Nora's wrist, as if it understood the shape of safe. At tribunal, an official asked, "Why did the cub stay with you?" "It could have fled." Nora looked at the small bundle in her arms, wrapped in a thermal blanket. Amber eyes. Star fur dim but present. "Because it learned I don't grab," Nora said. "I help." The room went quiet. Later, when the cub finished water and a second gel, it did something that made every medic pause. It tore the wrapper, broke the last strip in half, and pushed the smaller piece toward Nora. Sharing. Not instinct. Choice. Nora smiled through the tightness in her throat. "Thank you." In her private log, she wrote one word. NYX. Black as night. Stars in its fur. The next morning, the storm cleared enough to reveal Mount Kestral's jagged spine under sunlight. Nora stood by the window with NYX tucked against her chest. NYX chirped once. Quiet. Nora rubbed its head with one finger. "You and I," she whispered. "We're not going back to being cargo." Outside, the mountain looked indifferent. Inside, a rescued cub slept in a human's arms, and for the first time since it was born, it was safe on purpose. If you felt that in your chest, don't scroll away. Subscribe to Survival Arena HFY for more stories like this. Cute starts, real stakes, and endings that hit hard.